According to Mythos, 100% of you are subscribed. Good job.
Relic sets. These are the items that allow us to be able to beat a lot of the endgame content that is found within Star Rail. However, that's not the only thing that they do. As some of you may have been able to notice, a lot of the relic sets are themed around specific characters or specific events that have happened within Star Rail, and as such, they have a lot of lore. So much lore that I've had to divide this entire series into multiple chunks in order to make it editable for my small little brain. In today's video, we're going to be going over 6 different sets, these ones being the Champion of Streetwise Boxing, Thief of Shooting Meteor, Passerby of Wandering Cloud, Musketeer of Wild Wheat, Guard of Wuthering Snow, and the Genius of Brilliant Stars. A lot of these have a lot of lore that I cannot wait to get into. So, how about we get on with the video? Champion of Streetwise Boxing, Champion's Headgear. Having grown up on the streets, Lindsay had never thought of boxing in official matches, for she never believed she could be defeated by anyone, let alone someone who already has a foot in the grave. The old lady, calling herself a boxing coach, provided Lindsay with a full set of protective gear and challenged the young girl to a bout, demanding Lindsay to train under her if the old lady managed to win. Lindsay was too proud to use the complicated protective gears and tossed them all aside. She thought she could rely on her quick reactions for an easy win, but the old lady got near her in 3 strides and landed a blow straight to her face. When Lindsay regained consciousness, she picked up the boxing headgear she had tossed aside. Through the narrow opening of the headgear, she saw a brand new world. So these are the fists of a true boxer, huh? Interesting. If you want to teach me, then train me to be the strongest boxer that ever lived. Though a bit begrudgingly, Lindsay accepted that she had lost the bet. Now, wearing protective equipment for the first time, she officially stepped into the world of boxing. Champion's Heavy Gloves. When Lindsay first entered the boxing ring, her fighting style was utterly unbalanced, for she only knew how to attack, but never how to defend. All her years of street fighting were inadequate to prepare her for the fight in the ring. The match, arranged by Ekaterina, put Lindsay in her place. A series of successive defeats in local fights shattered Lindsay's arrogance and deeply humbled her, forcing her to reflect on the balanced offensive and defensive rhythm that Ekaterina was teaching her. As if kissed by the goddess of combat, this once stubborn street fighter gradually came to understand the significance and joy of balancing offense with defense. The next thing she knew, her hand wraps were torn and her gloves soaked with sweat and blood. Never let yourself fall into your opponent's traps. Remember your own rhythm. Now, Lindsay finally came to appreciate Ekaterina's words and her loving gaze. The usually stern Ekat had long loved Lindsay like she would her own child. Champion's Chest Guard. The scene in the training gym on the night before the championship fight was like the old days. The sound of quick and heavy punches on the sandbag echoed through the gym. Sweat soaked through her chest guard, and the scorching steam detached Lindsay from reality, making her crave to escape it all. Lindsay tried her best to control her emotions as her face glimmered with sweat and tears. Late into the night, she finally took off her chest guard and wrote the name Ekat on the inside. She wants to swear she would achieve victory for this name. This was a key match in Lindsay's path to becoming the boxing champion, and her first fight without her coach by her side. Before Lindsay stepped into the ring, she held out her chest proudly to the camera. Lindsay, I couldn't believe you shared the same name with my daughter. I always thought I was done with the world for good when she passed, until I finally met you. Thank you Lindsay. Protect me, Ekat. The most important name was right by her heart. Champions Fleetfoot boots. With a rather petite figure, Lindsay became famous for her fast punches and nimble footwork that allowed her to dance in the ring like a fluttering butterfly amidst flowers. Regardless of how fast her opponents could throw a punch, all their strikes could never hit Lindsay. Such was the power of what was known as Lindsay's dance. To train Lindsay's unique footwork, Ekaterina took the street urchin to a high society ball, where they dance hand in hand, spin after spin. Though clumsy at first, Lindsay eventually got the hang of the refined dance steps. She realized that there was more to this old boxing coach than met the eye. Among the flowing sea of dancers, a soft spot in Lindsay's heart was suddenly struck by a magical feeling. One more dance? Lindsay's upbringing on the street did not prepare her for such experiences. Seeing the twinkle in Ekaterina's eyes, how could Lindsay refuse?
You know, I do have to admit, it is somewhat lovely and nice to just learn about some random character. Like, as far as I could see, Lindsay does not appear or is relevant in any type of, like, heavy lore related stuff. But just reading the story was kind of nice, so I kind of dig that.
Thief of Shooting Meteor, Thief's Myriad-Faced mask. Meteor Thief LeBlanc saw Heist as participating in a masquerade ball, and hiding his identity was part of the etiquette. How could a mask change a person's height and voice? It's a patented secret, completely confidential. Wearing a mask, LeBlanc disguised himself as an ordinary staff member, sneaking into the IPC's security meeting and offered advice on their thief prevention measures. It was not until half a month after the theft that the security team recalled that they didn't know that colleague at the meeting. Thieves have led a double life, requiring various means of disguise. Such was the tradition of the world of thievery. Can your writers make the thief wear the mask throughout the entire film? The marketing team of the IPC's radio, film, and television department said to the producer, "I am once again stressing the need for this mask as merchandise. Affordability and popularity are equally important." Thief's gloves with prints. Meteor Thief LeBlanc was never a neat freak. He didn't care about leaving traces. He would always leave misleading clues, serving the right amount of provocation. How could these people in the IPC have been fooled so many times? Perhaps the fault should lie with the IPC, not me. His gloves could generate all sorts of prints, which always made a fool of the IPC's fingerprint detection devices, leaving them with a bunch of harmless so-called thieves' flaws. The security team found hundreds of prints in their secret treasure storage room, including those of prehistoric pterosaurs, interstellar ladybugs, labradors, and needless to say, none of them belonged to the thief. Vanishing without a trace was tedious, and served only to group one alongside those timid little thieves who've got absolutely no style. Fiction should never outright contradict reality. Who still uses fingerprint systems these days? The IPC security team complained. Do these writers have any common sense? Thieves steal grappling hook. A well-prepared thief can always escape safely from desperate situations with a life-saving grappling hook equipped under his belt at all times. How to throw the grappling hook at the right target? Could you explain how you made all those moves? The secret treasure storage room was full of lethal machinations, but the thief danced around them using the grappling hook at his waist as if he was performing a waltz in mid-air. In a split second from when he reached for his belt, LeBlanc threw the grappling hook to a wall tens of meters high, and the pulley then rolled and instantly sent the thief to the Star of Leo. To come and go anywhere one desires, with just a steel grappling hook equipped under one's belt, is the basic qualification required of a professional thief. You know, we could just let the stunt double play his part in the sequel. That'll save us a lot of money. The action choreographer quipped. The audience wouldn't know who was under the mask anyways. Theif's Meteor Boots. LeBlanc would deliberately leave a beam of dazzling light behind him when jumping from roof to roof, earning him the title of Meteor Thief. How would one escape if there was no skyscrapers? Spare me these ignorant questions. He had sneaked away from countless chases, and it made him a master of escape. No one could catch up to his meteor boots in the city unless someone knew where his base of operation was. To LeBlanc's surprise, a detective with messy hair was sitting inside with his coffee cup, having waited for LeBlanc for a long time. The story of the thief is over. Now it's time for the legend of the detective. Many people don't believe we would write like this, which is exactly why we do so. An anonymous writer explained the controversial end of the Meteor Thief.
Okay, this one was actually very funny. I just love the idea of this being completely a work of fiction. The fact that the IPC is trying to market everything though, and just how the philosophy of the IPC works, is something that I'll always adore. Just like, oh, it needs to be affordable but also highly marketable. And oh, you know, the guy's always gonna have a mask on, so just keep the stunt double. Why do we need an actual actor? It's like, these are like such scumbags, but it fits. Like, they just did such a good job portraying them.
Passerby of Wandering Cloud. Passerby's rejuvenated wooden hairstick. A distant and yet familiar feeling of nervousness wrapped around him, sharp and distinct with phantom pain. As the unnamed woke from his long and deep slumber, his past was shattered into razor-edged shards, and he forgot even his own name. Wandering aimlessly, he drank melted snow to quench his thirst, hunted wild beasts to fuel his stomach, and chopped a withered branch to use as a wooden hairstick to fasten his flowing hair. Like the incessantly flowing stream of a mountain spring, his long, black hair never ceased growing. His flesh twitched and throbbed beneath his skin, like river carps flipping and swarming. Fascinating power ceaselessly reconstructed his body, bringing an everlasting pain of bones and tendons rupturing and healing. As countless phantom agonies and torments tore through his body, his shattered past was also beginning to come together. As he glanced at his own reflection in the water, the story of that tragedy gradually cleared in his mind. When the face in the reflection was no longer a stranger's, the unnamed suddenly realized the dead branch was sprouting flower buds. Epiphany struck him like lightning. The curse of immortality still raged on, and the grudge of past misgivings never died out. He was now the newborn flower on this once dead branch. Passerby's roaming dragon bracer. It seems that pairs of objects have telepathic connections with each other. Though the unnamed only had one bracer in his possession, his fingertips could still faintly feel the temperature from the other. He closed his eyes, trying his best to extract any information about the other bracer from the tenuous connection, be it its location or its master. A slender yet strong hand once wore the other bracer.
That owner, whose sharp spear glinted with a cold light and flourished like shooting stars, once sparred with the unnamed. That owner also once shared company and drinks with the unnamed, the two of them simply gazing at the moon with no words exchanged. However, in the end, it was also this person who stubbornly adhered to their plans with the unnamed, turned the beloved into a monstrosity, and pushed all into an abyss of eternal hatred and remorse. Pairs of objects are destined for eventual reunion. The long years of grudges and hatred between them should be savored like ice-cold aged liqueur. One slow sip after another until the bottle of resentment is finally empty. Would the wearer of the other brace feel the same? The unnamed didn't want to know. Passerby's ragged embroidered coat. The unnamed roamed everywhere in his exile like a walking corpse, until a woman in sunglasses and a person wearing a colossal armor stood in his way. Before they could extend their invitation, the unnamed had already unsheathed his sword in refusal. After an exchange of blows, the smiling woman offered a deal that the unnamed could not refuse. The unnamed accepted the deal, obtained a new identity, and went back to the world of civilization and order. The unnamed was brought into a tailor's shop, where his sizes were measured and presentable clothes were custom made. People even dressed his hair, groomed his face, and made him regain his old appearance. In a trance, he began to lose track of time. In hasty memories of olden days, he finally made up his mind to gift his bosom friend his handmade jade flask, only to realize with a shock that the person he longed for was no longer there. He realized that everything he relied on to walk this earth, his body, this entire life, this love and hatred, and even this set of clothes, were just loaned items. He will repay all of them in full, then draw his last breath. Passerby's Stygian hiking boots. The unnamed followed the slave's orders and traveled to the other side of the sky with his new companions. He walked with bewilderment and hatred across countless worlds, often finding himself in grave crises of life and death. He had long forgotten the joy of creation, lost in his hurries from one battlefield to the next. In his past battles, he had sustained an innumerable number of sword slashes and cuts. In his past defeats, his body was splintered and smashed into pieces over and over again. His opponent would always end the battle with one finishing move right through his heart. And now, all those masterly sword moves that had induced his numerous scars were forever imprinted in his memory, and his martial prowess was refined in countless lethal encounters. The unnamed wielded his sword and slashed his way through obstacles for allies. Wherever he fell, he rose right up, over and over again. He seemed to have let go of all of his hatred in his dedication to the sword dance. The slave promised to bring an eternal end and a final funeral to the unnamed's life and everything he had ever hated. The unnamed nodded, put his sword back in its sheath, then raced to the next world. If life could be deemed as a continuous journey, then the unnamed wishes to step over the pool of blood made of all whom he deeply resented, before reaching his own end. You know, learning about the lore is always such a treat, but dear God, when they excel at it like this, it is absolute cinema. I love the fact that this set goes over the backstory of Blade after he just woke up and became immortal, how he's like so lost and disoriented, how he realizes he has become immortal. I love the fact that, the bracer, like, oh my god, okay. I always understood why people shipped Danheng and Blade, right? Like, it makes sense from everything that I've seen. That being said, properly reading this part and going fully in depth about the description that they're both actually tied through the Vidyadhara bracer, that these two have a strong connection, that they can feel each other literally. I'm just like, wow, that is just insane. And like also, just I'm yapping about like every single part of the set, but just I love hearing about Jing Liu, how, there's like the mentions that she was the one that trained him by literally murdering him over and over again, so he just learned the techniques. And then him accepting to go to join the Stellaron Hunters because both Firefly and Kafka appeared, and just Elio's promises. Just I love this. This was a really good read.
Musketeer of Wild Wheat. Musketeer's Wild Wheat felt hat. Oakley inherited this felt hat from her deceased father. Now that she tucked ears of wheat into the hat as ornaments, it looked much cuter than before. Bounty hunters, whether intentionally or not, always sought to craft emblems of their own, in the hope that these items could one day become the beginning of great legends. The Interastral Peace Corporation offered bounties to enlist experts of the highest caliber to hunt down interastral pirates, and Oakley, as one who always worked alone, forever sought out the most challenging regions of desolation among the farthest reaches of the world. Days under the scorching hot sun were coupled with bitterly cold nights. In her lonely odyssey, Oakley could fall asleep with her head pillowed on her felt hat whenever she was near a bonfire. All her dreams were intruded by a mysterious gunslinger who claimed to be a bounty hunter from afar. His scrawny figure was in sharp contrast with his fiercely stern gaze. The gunslinger challenged Oakley's father to a duel to the death at high noon. Shots were fired. A felt hat was dropped, and Oakley's father was falling backwards to the ground, followed by the sound of weeping and wailing from Oakley's mother. Little Oakley gawked at the gunslinger in stupor, whose attitude with the gun was so superb that her father could never stand a chance. Waking up, there would be traces of damp tears on Oakley's felt hat. As a child, she learned how to shoot a gun only because she had wanted her father's handsome and stylish hat. Musketeer's coarse leather gloves. Young Oakley practiced and practiced. She trained in the ranch from dawn to dusk. At times, her father felt surreptitiously surprised by and proud of little Oakley's talents, while other times he fretted over her future living the life of a musketeer. Oakley's mother seemed to be the only one who actually cared and felt for young Oakley's tender little hands, often blaming Oakley's father for teaching her how to fire a gun. From the fateful duel to the completion of her first bounty and her later fame, Oakley had used the same pair of worn gloves for years. Her peers didn't understand her insistence of wearing the same pair of broken gloves. Only she knew the conflicting emotions within those gloves, for they were the parting gifts her mother gave her. What sort of emotional struggles must Oakley's mother have gone through when she had been so stubbornly opposed to Oakley learning her way around guns? After that duel, her mother wept unceasingly in Oakley's arms. Oakley didn't say anything, but her mother had already read Oakley's thoughts. Musketeer's Wind Hunting Shawl. A musketeer should never show their opening first when dueling.
Oakley could discreetly load bullets into the chamber and lock onto the mark without alarming her targets. For any onlookers, her loose-fitting cloak never moved 1 inch until the shot was fired. No one could figure out how she did it. Intricate moves should be done under the cover of the cloak. The duel must be over before the bullet had left the gun, her father repeatedly emphasized. After accidentally encountering a group of armed bandits, Oakley calmly steadied herself and observed the situation. Before pulling out her gun, she had remained upright like a mountain rock that had not been moved in centuries. She finished all her preparations before the bandits could even move a finger. After a round of clear-sounding shots, Oakley intentionally let go one of the bandits to send out a warning to the whole cohort. Thoughtless, expressionless, often leaving her opponents with no hope of ever defeating her. That was how her fellow bounty hunters viewed Oakley. While dueling, Oakley was more like that one mysterious intruding gunslinger in her dreams. With her brisk and clean shots, and not a single superfluous move, she couldn't help but resent her own self when she realized she was becoming more and more like her nemesis. Musketeer's Rivets riding boots. The journey was long and arduous, but Oakley was long used to such loneliness. She was always wearing her riding boots to march to the farthest reaches of the world, regardless of how meager a pay she would get. She had a hunch. That mysterious gunslinger must also be a man of seclusion. Their encounter would inevitably occur at a place frequented by few. After coming by a harmonica, Oakley spent most of her alone time on intermittent practicing of songs. Her audience? No one but tarantulas, sandstorms, and tumbleweeds. Through her journey, Oakley was becoming better at coming up with techniques to kill time. It was said that the wind once stood and listened to Oakley's play on the harmonica, only leaving when the whole song came to an end. The IPC offered bounty hunters plenty of opportunities for interstellar traveling, and the destination was never a concern for this particularly lone musketeer. Sometimes Oakley did wonder if she was just chasing a phantom all this time, since that mysterious gunslinger was long gone without a trace. Sometimes it seemed that all Oakley ever did was to set out for one mission after another. Oakley insisted, however, that as long as her fame as the Wild Wheat was far-reaching enough, the mysterious gunslinger would eventually show up at her door, just like how he once did at the ranch to duel her father. So, I would be lying if I didn't admit that this Relic set has left me pretty intrigued. First of all, I just want to say I love the mention of the IPC here, because having a little bit of world building that the IPC hires bounty hunters in order to get some of the work done is pretty cool. That being said, the main thing that I was wondering is, I don't think that the timelines align, but there's the mention of that one scrawny bounty hunter that shot Oakley's father, right? Could that be Boothill, or am I just like overthinking it? Because at first I was like, oh yeah, no, Boothill wouldn't do that. But then, if the father was also taking IPC commissions, then he too probably would be in one of Boothill's hit lists, right? And also, Boothill is a bounty hunter as well, as far as I'm aware. Like, he will take wanted rewards, right? Like, at this point, I'm also just confusing myself with my own memory, because in my brain, Boothill has done bounty hunter work in the past. But also, he has so many bounties to his name that that just might be where, like, my information's getting mixed. Still though, keep me honest, correct me if I am wrong. And also I would like to know what you think about it. Like, do you think that's actually Boothill or not? Guard of Wuthering Snow.
Guard's Cast Iron Helmet. It was no easy task staying prepared for battle in the Eternal Freeze, but Yarilo 6's Silvermane guards are used to it. The sharp, cold wind howled through the gaps in the helmet, slashing skin as if it were icy razor blades. The monsters from beyond the sky renewed their formation, and soldiers armed to the teeth stood ready under the command of the Supreme Guardian. Vanguards stationed forward often need to hunker down in the snow for days at a time as they look out for any monster activity. After being exposed to the elements for such a long time, the soldiers' skin, sweat, and the velvet lining of their helmet will freeze and stick together, such that hot water must be poured over their helmets for safe removal. The architect's craftsmen then alter the curvature of the cast iron helmet's metal plates, minimizing the air resistance of the heavy helmet in the snow. Sturdy, warm, majestic, these traits of the Silvermane Guard's helmet were passed down for generations. How can you even see with that thing on? Every patrolling guard has been asked this question. Guards' shining gauntlets. After the invaders, carrying the mark of destruction, cut off the guard unit's retreat, Laszlo Landau ordered his troops to protect the Supreme Guardian and escape while he stayed behind to hold off the enemy. Even the most valiant captain among the Silvermane Guards could not retreat unscathed from the swarm of monsters. The terrifying cries and ferocious assaults of the twisted monsters were unrelenting. Despite their incessant charges, none of these monstrosities managed to break the lone defense line set up by Landau. The unending fierce battle gradually exhausted Laszlo, but he managed to hold on until reinforcements finally showed up. It was only then that he collapsed into unconsciousness. The soldiers found out that Laszlo had lost both of his hands in the battle. The architect's best blacksmiths forged a pair of exquisite gauntlets to bestow upon the hero, such that he may once again hold up the Silvermane Guard's banner. The only regret, Laszlo lamented to himself as he marveled at the gauntlets, is that I will no longer be able to feel the vibration of the bow. Guard's uniform of old. An old-fashioned Silvermane Guard uniform passed down for generations in the Gotha family. This uniform has long been buried at the bottom of a chest, and only a soldier's honor might be worthy of its return to the world. As the soldiers of destruction marched ever closer, the Silvermane Guards swore to defend the last barrier even when there was no possibility of retreat. During the defense of Ivalo, Horus Gotha led his squad in the months-long defense of a key mountain pass. When the trumpets of arriving reinforcements finally sounded in the valley, that valiant company of heroes was long gone, and even their remains were nowhere to be found. At the commemoration ceremony, Supreme Guardian Alisa pinned a Medal of Honor on Horus Gotha's young son. The boy stood upright in this old-fashioned uniform, representing those who had made the ultimate sacrifice. The young Gotha Jr. saw uniforms and medals on that day, but the Supreme Guardian saw so much more. She witnessed the great legacy left behind by heroes, the future of Belobog. Horus Gotha was a true warrior. You should be proud to bear the Gotha name. This was the young Gotha's only memory of the Supreme Guardian. Guards Silver Greaves. The Silvermane Guard field battalions often found themselves forced to march for miles in deep snow due to tactical needs. Exhaustion induced by long-range raids and awful frostbite on their feet were the bitter ordeals all soldiers had to endure. The long march across the snowy plains, however, would occasionally bring back friends from the old days. Silvermane guards tasked with patrolling the snow plains will often hear the howls of dire wolves. These pitiful creatures were also driven from their homes by the invaders. Field Company Sergeant Jaeger, who came from a family of hunters, was skilled at making fur cloaks from dire wolf manes. However, after the onset of the eternal freeze, he rarely saw these ferocious animals. Occasionally, on cold winter nights, a dire wolf, desperate for warmth, would approach the guard's campfire and silently lie down right next to Jaeger, falling into warmth, pleasant dreams. After dawn, however, the beast would never wake up again. Sergeant Jaeger would often stuff the processed wolfmane into the soldier's silver greaves to alleviate the pain during the long march on foot. Dire wolves haven't completely lost their homes, just like us. Sergeant Jaeger thus lamented the plight of the dire wolves. Okay, not gonna lie, I really like the idea of there being multiple stories about different Silvermane guards. I like how we started generic, but then suddenly there was a mention of a Landau. As far as I'm aware, this is like long in the past because they're using bow and arrows, which is kind of wild. Especially since we know currently in Belobog they use essentially guns, right? Rifles. So that was interesting. The other one was I love the mention of the Gotha family, especially since we're told that the Gotha Hotel, both in the overworld and in the underworld, it's like very popular and it has like branches and it's very renowned. So that was great. And then the last one just made me upset. I'm not gonna lie, I feel so bad for our dire wolves. Genius of brilliant stars. Genius's ultra-remote sensing visor. It is a truth universally acknowledged that among members of the Genius Society, there is an overabundance of eccentricity and a lack of communication. Social interactions is indeed a burden for most people, even more so for geniuses traveling between worlds. Elias Salas, member 56 and the second head of the Genius Society, once tried to resolve this problem. He ardently prepared communication goggles equipped with ultra-remote sensing capabilities for all members. However, though he succeeded in establishing a bridge between the most distant of stars, few were willing to connect. Thus, the universe's greatest ever communication device was never utilized. The number you have dialed is not in service. Can't you just show a bit more commitment when you pretend to be an AI? Elias Salas sighed and understood that this indeed was a huge ask. But he got to give it a try, believing his technology would one day have its use one way or another. Genius's frequency catcher. How to slack off at work without being noticed was an ongoing problem for Stephen Lloyd, 84th member of the Genius Society, who was living in his foster father's fruit store. He made a pair of gloves that could capture specific frequencies and the escaping sound and light, allowing himself the pleasure of researching the stringed instruments behind the frequency fence. This technology could capture and confine all light and sounds within the designated area, and was simply inexplicable within the current confines of Iden classical sciences. It was indeed an outstanding invention that could change the course of science, to say the least. But Stephen had no interest in introducing this technology to the public. After all, to him it was just a toy he made to loaf on the job. Stephen, I don't know exactly what you've done, but you're definitely slacking off, right? Even though Stephen Lloyd was celebrated as a genius among geniuses, to his foster father, Stephen was just a child that liked fantasizing and goofing around. Genius's Metafield suit. The Metafield space created by Circle Member 29 transcended biological rays and multiple dimensions. Any living creature could synchronize its neural signals into the consciousness network simply with the help of a diving suit. For these creatures that were unable to travel between worlds, this collective dream domain granted them a chance to connect with one another and seek peace and tranquility that were non-existent in the real world. Within this metafield of virtual data, these creatures created countless cultural assets, and a new order was quietly established. Just when it looked like this virtual Eden would finally replace reality, Circle, the net weaver of all creation, cut off the connections to the consciousness network, as if it had been one big joke. The entire metafield suddenly sank into silence. All those investors who would yammer about metafield space all day have all gone mad. The industry has been empowered countless times, but now the metafield is gone. People are prone to any supposition when they lose something. The metafield might have been designed to be a petri dish for the soul. Inviting creatures of various kinds might just be a ruse for getting free soul samples. Genius's Gravity Walker. The notorious Dr. Primitive, member 64, had spent his life running away from interstellar pursuers for the great crimes he had committed. Dr. Primitive seemed to enjoy the thrill of being pursued, always keeping a carefully managed distance from those who were hunting him. Never too close to be caught, nor too far to be untraceable. He applied some kind of gravity capture technology to his escape, where he was able to use gravity to wander freely across space. Astrophysicists from the Intelligentsia Guild could not understand the principle of this technology, so they merely assumed it was something to do with the gravitational potential difference between stars. His pursuers, riding in vehicles of the gravity era, struggled to catch up to his speed, swearing to bring him to justice. Watching someone spacewalking should have been a feast for the eyes, a Galaxy Ranger said. Too bad that someone is Dr. Primitive. The Galaxy Ranger still refused to believe in Dr. Primitive's presumptive death, and continued the hunt for him even after he had completely vanished. Okay, I'm a really big fan of these relic sets that contain multiple character stories within them. The fact that we get to learn about 4 different Genius Society members is absolutely wild. For those that have seen the Curio series, we know about Elias Salas, that he's also like the Genius Society ticket Curio that he made again in order to socialize with other members of the Genius Society. Too bad that whenever anybody used it, nobody was there, so it was just miserable. He's trying his best, and I appreciate him for that, but it's just not working, homie. Getting to know more about Stephen Lloyd was an absolute treat. I love that it is established further that he's pretty much lazy. I did feel like I got sort of the opposite vibes before, because the Herta puts him to work a ton, but now knowing that he looks like a child, and also just implied now that he's very young, very laid back, I am very much looking forward to him being in the story. There's Circle, which actually blew my mind learning that that's an actual spider that lived for 29 days. Yeah, I believe it's 29 days. Okay, I had to pause the recording for a second. Yeah, this spider literally lived for 29 days. So this just spawned, was gazed by news, proceeded to literally just create this massive web within the world of Star Rail in this metaverse, and died. That is so random but so cool. And last but not least, we have more Dr. Primitive lore, which is really cool to hear. Just oh yeah, he just likes avoiding anybody that's hunting him. He likes the thrill of the hunt. He likes having people chase after him, which low-key just made me it just made me think about like the Thief of Meteor set, with again that guy just leaving clues behind on purpose so people would just chase him. I feel like at that point, Dr. Primitive might just be able to like sue for like identity theft. I'm not exactly sure what like the claim would be, but like they're using his likeness for the show. Though again, and no, it is the IPC. They're just drowning in money. They can probably survive a lawsuit anyways. And yeah, with that, we have gone over the lore of 6 relic sets out of the 30 that currently exist within Star Rail. And dear God, that was a lot more than I expected, not gonna lie. Mind you, however, reading through all of this has been a lot of fun because getting to learn more about the characters and just the overall world of the game is so freaking cool. God, I also do love the fact that after reading all of these sets, I have like a better understanding of like a lot of the things from the world of Star Rail. Like some of the things that I read through the Equation series and the Curious series just make so much sense now. Which does remind me, hey, if you enjoy this sort of content and would like to see more, please feel free to hit that subscribe button. It's free, it only takes a second, and if at any point you feel like the type of content is not really vibing with you or you feel like it's dropping in quality, you can always unsubscribe whenever you feel like it. Additionally, as always, I'll be making a playlist with all the videos related to the Relics lore so that it's easier to access, just like we did with the Equation series as well as the Curio series, because it's nice to just have everything compact within a single place to find. So if at any point you want more lore, you can always go check those out. With all of that being said, thank you so much for reaching up to this point of the video. Your time really means a lot. I will be dropping the next video on Wednesday. We're doing a sort of weird little schedule because I have a lot of schoolwork to catch up with. So ideally, these 5 videos will be dropping today on Monday, the next one on Wednesday, the next one on Friday, and then Saturday, Sunday for a whole week of 5 videos that I cannot wait to yap about with you guys in the comments. So yeah, thank you so much once again. I hope you have a great rest of your day, night, morning, or whatever time zone you're currently watching this video at. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye bye.